I'm Mike Ritchie, and I work for Hazard Young in the TIA, and we have been hired by the district to assist them in the hiring process of your next superintendent. So with us tonight is Ryan Ruggles, and Ryan will be giving his introduction here shortly. How the process tonight will work, we're going to spend about 45 minutes to an hour. We'll keep this open until about 6:30 and giving you a chance to ask questions. And so what we ask you do, if you're here live, we ask that you write your question down on the note card, and I can walk around and collect them, or you can just bring them up to the front table. And then I will read the question to Ryan. If you are participating through Zoom, simply put your question in the chat box, and then we will grab it from there. And again, pending time, we'll try to get through all the questions, but I think what happened last time is we had a number of questions at the very end. And so we didn't get through all the questions. However, what we will do is I'm going to collect all the cards tonight, and we will give the note cards to the school board. So they will see all the questions, and all three candidates still have one interview left with the board. So they may ask that question at that final interview, and we'll just kind of see how things go tonight. So with that said, let's get started. And Ryan, I'm going to have you just introduce yourself and give everyone your background, your work history, past experiences, hobbies, interests, and why you're intrigued about this position.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Mike. I appreciate it. I appreciate the chance to be with everybody tonight here live and on Zoom. I actually got my start in administration right here in Watertown in this building. I was an assistant principal at Watertown High School back in 2006. I was here for a couple of years, loved my time here. It was amazing to go around the building and see all the friendly faces from back in the day. They're still here. I think that the fact that there's so many staff that are still here that were here when I was here back in 2006 says a lot about this district and about the community. And that's one of the reasons that I really want to be back here. As I moved on from Watertown, I went to Sun Prairie. I was there for 9 years as a principal at upper middle school. It was quite a jump for our family. We weren't really looking to move at the time. I was loving my job here in Watertown, but an opportunity came to start a brand new school in Sun Prairie. And I thought, hey, I'm a young guy. I'm going to put in and see what happens. Lo and behold, got the position, was there for 9 years. It was an amazing experience. I loved the work that we did there. We had staff that came together from 3 different buildings, and we created Cardinal Heights Upper Middle School with 3 different staff. It was highly collaborative. It was such a cool process. Left Sun Prairie after 9 years. My wife and I had conversations for years about going overseas, and kind of had an opportunity of a friend through a friend. We started having some conversations with some folks that were overseas, and then we made the jump. We made the leap. So we went overseas, spent some time in Doha, Qatar. I was a middle school principal there. My wife taught high school English. It was an absolutely amazing experience, something I would never give back, and I never regret for a moment that we jumped and went overseas. We made some lifelong friends over there. Our children learned life lessons, and were exposed to cultures and ideas that I think are going to help them for the rest of their life, and they're never going to forget. So it really was an amazing experience. My wife had a little bit of a medical scare when we were overseas, and decided, hey, we're going to come back. We want to be closer to family. So we came back to Wisconsin. I ended up landing in Milton, where I am right now. I've been there for 4 years as a director of curriculum and instruction. I love the work that I'm doing now in Milton. I have some really amazing projects going on right now, including creating a graduate profile. That's part of a community process that we're doing, where we are saying this is what we want out of all of our graduates in Milton. It's been a really inspiring process. It pairs right with our strategic plan and our mission and vision, and it's been some pretty cool work. I'm proud of a lot of the work I've done in Milton. I love my time there. I'm ready to take the next step and move into the superintendent role. But I'm not just looking to do any role. I'm not looking for just any job. I'm being very selective. So when Watertown came open, it was a no-brainer. Being here before and living here for a couple of years, my middle son was born right here in Watertown. And my wife and I were super excited at the prospects of coming back. Personally, my wife teaches at Janesville Craig. She's a high school English teacher, an amazing woman. I have 3 children. Just yesterday, my oldest graduated from Milton High School. She'll be going on to UW Platteville to be an educator, and of course, the family business. And then I have my middle son is going to be a sophomore next year, and my youngest son, Jacob, is going to be a seventh grader next year. So we are busy. Spend a lot of time coaching their sports and going to their different activities, and I wouldn't have it any other way.
All right, thank you, Ryan. I'm going to ask one more question, but just as a reminder, I know some people may have joined late. If you're here in person, there's note cards in front of you. Please write your question on the note card. I'll walk around, collect those. You can certainly ask more than one question, or you can do separate note cards if you'd like for separate questions. If you're on Zoom, just write your question in the chat box, and then we will grab it and we will ask it. We're going to try to spend about no more than an hour. And again, if we don't get to your question, I'm collecting all the questions and they will all go to the school board, and they can look at the questions that the audience did ask. And if they choose to, they can, the three finalists have one more interview yet with the board. So they could ask that question at that board last interview. So before we get to your questions, I know you spent all day in the district today.
Yeah.
You went on numerous tours. And so I just want you to talk to the people about what you saw, what excited you. Were you surprised by anything, any concerns? And then just kind of recap your day, if you will. 'Cause they don't know the schedule you were on today. So if you want to kind of highlight the schedule as well.
Absolutely. So today I had a chance to visit every single school in Watertown, and it was a busy day, but it was a fun day. We started in most of the elementaries in the morning, kind of worked our way up. Had lunch with the administrative team. Got a chance to meet all the administrators. And then in the afternoon, met with the high school, the middle school, and then Douglas was our last visit as well. I did have a chance after that to meet with a few community leaders, a few folks from the YMCA were there to talk with, and it was a great day, seeing some familiar faces across the entire district, but especially right here at the high school and at the middle school. I was familiar with quite a few folks. What really stuck out to me, and I've done the last couple of years, I've done a little bit of consulting on the side with a colleague of mine. We started something called Leadership, Compass Educational Leadership. And so we mentor some educational leaders. And one thing that we look for when we do that work, and one thing I look for when I do my current work right now within as a director of curriculum instruction, is really try to get a feel for the culture of the building as I walk in. And to me, one of the things that really stood out here is every single building I walked into just had such an amazing positive culture wherever I went. I could feel it as soon as you walk in the building. I was greeted by people, teachers introducing themselves, students curious to see who I was, and the fact that we have 3 days left in school, and the schools were engaged and cognitively busy and doing good work. I was just so impressed from top to bottom today with all the schools that I visited. You know, you go to some places and they're kind of shut down early, right? But I saw some good instruction happening today, some really good student engagement. But the thing that really stood out to me was just the positive culture. And I think there's a lot of pride within the buildings. There's a lot of pride within the community. And I think that's the foundation and building block for a lot of good things to happen.
Great, thank you. All right, first question. If the Watertown School Board wants to do something that you disagree with, whether it has to do with safety, curriculum, health, or anything in general for the school district, how would you resolve that disagreement with the board?
Absolutely. Well, first off, I plan to work with the board to establish that positive relationship right off the bat. And I want to make sure that we're open, that we're transparent, and that we're building a common vision. It's not their vision, it's not my vision, it's not just one school's vision. It is a common vision. What is our hope for Watertown, and what do we want for all kids? And with that, we have some hard conversations and some transparent conversations. So to me, I would hope there would be lots of conversations with the board leading up to that fact, and that wouldn't be something coming out of left field, something we had maybe talked over time and time and again. But also I'd want to know that, again, this should be a shared vision. It shouldn't be just a board decision. It shouldn't be just a Ryan decision or an admin team decision. This should be a place where we all want to go together. And I'm a big believer in policy board governance, that we work as checks and balances, that we work together. Also that our principals are here to run the schools daily. Like that's their job. And we don't want to infringe upon that. We want to make sure that they are put in a place to be successful to do that.
Great, thank you. Thoughts on curriculum transparency?
Curriculum transparency. Big topic over the last couple of years, especially with the pandemic. People wonder what's going on. Obviously, the world of Zoom and virtual education kind of opened up that world to everybody. To say, here's what's happening within our school as our teachers are teaching with families in the background and grandmas and grandpas and others in the background. I think number one, as I answer that question, the number one I think about is just trust. And how do you build trust is by building relationships, by listening, having good conversations, and just being above the line, being honest. I think out there's some false assumptions because we haven't told our story. And I'm not saying we as in Watertown, as in education, public education, we haven't done a great job of telling our story. And if we don't tell our story, then someone else is going to tell it for us. So we got to make sure that we're telling our story, we're being transparent about what we're doing, and know that we're doing it in the best interest of kids. We're not hiding anything from the public, and nor will we ever, and that we're having a chance for the public to come in and have those conversations with us as well. All right, so if there's a question, like we welcome parents to come in and talk with us about what's happening, because again, we want them to know that we want what they want, what's in the best interest of their kids.
Okay, thank you. What can be done to foster teacher retention?
Absolutely. That is huge, especially as we're coming out of the pandemic. What do we do to retain, to recruit, keep training high quality educators? I think right now in public education, we're seeing some free agency that we've never seen before, right? We've not had that opportunity within our field to jump to other districts, to make more money, for other districts call in to recruit teachers. It's something that really hasn't happened a lot in the past. Like, there's been some instances, but it's becoming more and more commonplace. When I was a young principal, when I was hiring a new English or social studies position, I might have well over 100 applicants. Now I'm happy if I would be in the double digits right now. So a couple things. One, people aren't going to leave a culture that's positive and that they love coming to work every day. And if they're well compensated and the benefits are good, and it's just an amazing place to be where they feel trusted and empowered to do good things for kids, people are going to stay. I commented earlier today on how impressed I was when I visited the high school today, just to see all the faces from when I was here in 2006. That was amazing to me. That tells me that they've built a really good culture here and that you're retaining good people. So there's a good foundation there, but we got to make sure that we stay on top of that foundation. We stay on top of that positive culture, because you always have to be taking the temperature of that culture, minding that culture, make sure that that you're not forgetting to have good conversations, because it can be easy to lose. Last thing within that is just making sure that we're really competitive with others around us and within the region with our benefits and our pay. I think over the last year especially, we've had a lot of folks calling each other saying, hey, what are you going to pay for summer school? What are you paying for special project pay? Because we know we have to respond to the needs of the market and make sure that our people are being compensated for the good work that they're doing.
Great, thank you. With all of the challenges over the last 2 years, how will you address the mental health issues of our students?
Absolutely. And I'd say students and staff and community kind of all in one. When we're talking about mental health, I think we're talking about our society right now. One thing that we just started having a conversation in Milton around is digital wellness. So we had done a lot of work earlier on. We're a one-to-one district in Milton with Apple products. So we were kind of on the forefront of one-to-one with innovation. We started teaching digital literacy many years ago, and within that, digital citizenship, And now that's kind of transformed into this concept of digital wellness. And with that is the concept of balance. And how does all this screen time, how does all this digital time, the factors of social media, what does that play? How much does that affect us from a mental health standpoint, and just from an overall wellness standpoint? So that's something that we're digging into as a district to talk about, because we've seen some major changes from the pandemic. Just the inability to put down the phone, the inability to stop looking away from that screen. It's having a major effect on us as a society, and especially our kids. Now I say that I'm a huge proponent of technology. I really am. We've done something in Watertown called the Innovation Summit, where it's all around good instructional technology use, being creative, creating projects, just true innovation. But within that topic, I do believe we have to have a more serious conversation around digital wellness on our overall health.
I'm going to take that one step further.
Okay.
And here's a related question. What is your view about technology in the classroom?
Okay, excellent.
Perfectly.
That's a good lead in. There we go. I think it's integral. And even as I talk about digital wellness, here's the thing. We have to talk about it because it's not going away. Like, we're only going to be doing more with technology moving forward. Those phones that we have can do amazing things, right? That we can order a cab on them. They can take us anywhere. It's my ticket as I get on a plane. It's my ticket as I go to a Brewers game. It does everything for us. I can do my banking on it, right? That's not going to change. That's not going to go away. So within that, we need to embrace it, make sure that we're teaching our kids good citizenship skills, and how to really utilize our technology in a productive way. I'm a huge proponent of one-to-one. So I definitely had some questions today. I know Watertown is one-to-one at the lower levels, and up here we have enough technology at the secondary levels to be one-to-one, and I would be a proponent to increase that, as long as we're having good conversations around how we're using that technology and that we're embedding it in our instruction. It shouldn't take the place, but if it enhances and makes the instruction better, that's the ultimate goal.
Good, thank you. Watertown High School has a normal school day program, the Opportunities Program, and the Start College Now program. How do you feel about other programs or other options that are becoming available for students, like dual enrollment credits at technical colleges like WCTC and MATC that they're offering?
Okay, excellent. Yeah, that landscape is constantly changing, and that's a good thing. And I think we need, as an educational team and as a district, we need to be on top of all these offerings to students. We want to make sure that our kids aren't missing out and missing an opportunity that other districts might have an opportunity for. With that, I'm a big believer in making sure that all of our kids are future ready. Okay, so I embed college and career into that future ready piece, because really it's our job to make sure our kids have the skills once they get to that point in their life that they can go down any track, right? So if they want to go to college, awesome, they can do that. If they want to go military, great, they have all the skills that they need to do that. If they want to go on to a tech school, they have the skills, they're able to do that. So our job is to get them to that point so they can make that decision for themselves and go. With that, I'm a big proponent of our technical schools. Down in Milton, I work with Blackhawk Tech quite a bit. They are doing some amazing things as an organization, Blackhawk Tech. They've been a great partner over the years. We have sought to increase the number of dual credit classes that we've had. Some of the licensure pieces can be a pain for that, but overall they've been a great partner. And I think if we can help kids earn credits while they're in high school, so when they move on, they can save some money, whether it's tech or 4-year. Boy, we have to do that. College back in my day, I mean, I could work for a whole summer and pay for it. That's not the case anymore. So I think we got to be really mindful of that when we're preparing kids for what's next.
Okay, but thank you. How would you communicate with parents and the community?
I think through multiple ways. Number one, I think the biggest thing is to be visible, just to be out and about. Being part of the community is number one. Being recognizable, being at events. I think that is the number one piece, is just being highly visible and being truly a part of the community. And then the next piece of that is find out what's been done now, what do people want, and then find out what other opportunities are there to engage with the community. When I was a principal, I did quite a few videos for all my families. And I thought that was a good way for me to engage with families, because instead of just reading a letter or an email that things might get lost in translation, or sometimes people like to insert tone or ideas between the lines. If I was on a video and hopefully I was sincere, my message is coming clear. And to me, the video was a really good way to get my message across. I've done that a little bit as well in Milton. As we started our graduate profile project, I started that with a video as well, kind of describing to the community, here's what we're looking for, here's what this is going to be. So I found lots of success with that. And just regular communication of we're letting folks know what's happening. We're sharing our positives on a regular basis so people know, but also know like, hey, here's things to improve upon. For instance, our state report card. There's some new calculations on how the state report card was formulated for this year. So in Milton, we're the highest achieving district in Rock County, but because of how that new state report card is formulated with the different ways for each district, depending on their specific numbers, we were not the highest report card in Rock County. And our community had said, whoa, what's going on? So we had to do a lot of educating the folks about, okay, here's what this means. All right, so if you see here, we are clearly the highest achieving school within Rock County, and here's how they came up with that makeup. But we had to tell our story and share our successes. But at that same point, we were very open about why the report card went down. That even though our achievement was good, that based on how they calculate a report card, the areas of growth is a need for us. It shined a light on one of our weaknesses, and we said, this is us. We need to be better at this. So I think as we tell our story about the positives, we also have to be very open about what we got to get better at as well.
Good. His next question is, how do you approach vouchers, charters, and open enrollment? So why don't you start with, how do you approach vouchers?
Vouchers. I think number one, we want to make sure that we are open enrollment winners. All right. So whatever we can do to increase our enrollment, and that we have more come in than we have going out. To me, that is a major goal. With revenue streams from the state and the money trees from the state here not growing, we got to make sure that we have other means and that we can increase our resources. So through the vouchers, through increasing our open enrollment from outside of our boundaries, I think those would be key goals for us here in Watertown. And how we do that is by multiple means. Number one, kind of some of the things we talked about, being very open about who we are and being very transparent, making this a culture where everybody wants to be a part of. And as we tell our story, how can we brand ourselves? And this is an amazing community. We going around today, our schools have some great things going on. We should be telling that story so anybody that is on the fringe of Watertown is thinking, maybe that's where I want to go to school instead.
Hey, you want to talk about charter schools?
Charter school, yeah. So thank you for reminding. I have some interest and some background within charter schools. Actually, when I started here in 2006, I was looking at starting a green charter school with several members of the high school at that time. We were one of the first to start to kind of play with that idea and look around. And while I don't think that school came to fruition, I think it definitely sparked some other ideas within the district. And now it definitely has grown. I think when you look at where the money is going from the state and where the money is going from the feds, it's an option we have to think about, we have to consider, especially knowing that one size doesn't fit all kids. So we got to have options for our students, and charter schools can be a great way to have options for students and meet their needs and have different options for them. One of the great things about charters is you have a little bit more flexibility on how you can run day-to-day operations. So you can be really flexible. And clearly not all charters are created equal. There's some folks that have abused it and give it a bad name, and that's too bad, because I think the majority of charter schools are working hard to do creative things for kids. So telling that story and making sure that we continue to support those people that are being creative and innovative with our students.
Good, okay. This next question is a budget question. It has two parts. So I'll read the whole question, but then I'll go back and I'll reread just the first part. All right. So the question is, what are your first tier of priorities for the budget? And then relatively, what might precipitate a call for a referendum? So just answer the first part first. What would be your first budget tier of priorities for the budget?
My first priority for the budget would be getting a good handle with our business manager and our administrative team on how we're doing. As part of this process, working with Mike and Pat, I feel like Watertown is a good place financially. From what I've seen, there's been some good financial management. With that, I want to dig a little deeper and kind of see where that's at. Every district I've been in has used different forecasted models to look forward. And I would want to find out what forecasted model Watertown uses when they're trying to kind of build out and look at what their enrollment looks like, and kind of plan forward with their budget a couple years down the line. What one problem we're having within Milton is, if you look within the last 15 years, our enrollment has kind of gone like this. It's up 1 year, down the next, up 1 year, down the next. So they've been pretty status quo probably for the last 10, 15 years-ish, really. And that the way that we tackle that is by looking forward ahead, always looking at, okay, what are our 4K numbers? What are incoming numbers? This is the number that we have going out for senior class, and just really staying on top of what we have for each number looking forward. So I'd want to know that forecasted number, and I just have a lot of questions. I'm not the type that's going to come in and just make a ton of changes right away. I want to find out the history, and I'm not looking to fix something that's not broken. So I definitely have lots of questions about their models, but that would be important to me to dig into that right away.
Good. Okay. The second part then is, what might precipitate a call for a referendum? And I'm assuming an operational referendum. We're talking about the budget.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's work with our business team and our HR team as we're taking our compensation model and playing that forward. Is it sustainable? We found we had kind of a dual model right in Milton, where all of our teachers were moving up on the pay scale every single year. They're moving up a lane, and in addition to that, our staff had an opportunity to earn credits and earn hours to move up on the pay scale as well. It was amazing for our teachers. It was a nice system, but it was unsustainable as a district. Like we're a low spending district historically. We've done really amazing work with what we've had, but we just could not sustain that model. So we had to look forward and make some changes to our compensation model. So I would cast forward our compensation model to make sure that was a sustainable model, looking well into the future. And typically that's what those operating referendums are. It's boy, when 80% of your cost is personnel, that's what you need to look at.
Good. I'm down to 2 questions left, and I can certainly ask more on my own, but perfect. Okay. So again, if you're on Zoom, please put your questions in the chat. So what is your philosophy on school discipline?
Okay. Philosophy on school discipline. All right. I got my start in education in an alternative school in La Crosse, leadership alternative school. And from there, went on to teaching at school within a school. So I have a long history of working in alternative education, if you will. That was a term back in the day. And just alternate options for kids. When I think about discipline, I think about what are the behaviors we want to see in our kids, and how do we teach the behaviors that we want to see in our kids? What are those expectations? I'm a big believer in teaching expectations of behaviors to our kids. I think when conversations jump right to discipline, we're missing the boat. We know what to do if a kid is behind in reading or behind in math, right? We have And any of our building administrators could say, we have these systems set up to support our kids. Well, we should have those same systems set up from a behavioral standpoint as well. How are we supporting our kids to make the right decisions? How are we teaching them to make the right decisions? It's a life skill. With that, I'm a big believer in responsive classrooms. I think it's a powerful program. PBIS, back in the day, I was a huge supporter, and not saying I'm not, but I was a huge supporter of PBIS. But what I don't think it's done is really evolve the way it should have as a program overall. PBIS was a great tool for teacher behavior, and we got, I think, wrapped up as educators more in the approval of behaviors than the hey, this is the norm for our culture. And I think responsive classrooms is a good response to that. They do really good work of what every day should look like within the classrooms at the K-6 level. And with that, at the secondary level, I think restorative justice is a good way to go about it. Trouble with restorative justice, it takes a lot of time. It can take time away from the classroom. But if you're taking that time to set the expectations, really build the behaviors you want to see, then I think restorative justice can do amazing things for schools. With that said, the number one thing parents want from us, besides high achieving of their kids, right? They send their students to us every single day. They want their kiddos to be making the best growth they can be. But the number one thing they're looking for is, hey, you're going to send them back safely. That's number one. So we got to make sure that we have a good, safe, positive learning environment. That is our number one goal.
All right. If an administrator were to transgress, what principles would you follow to address that event?
Transgress.
I'm assuming disagree with you,
Okay.
or probably not follow a initiative.
Okay.
Or, how would you
Absolutely.
address that?
I think it depends specifically on the situation. Let me start with this. So I'm a big believer in alignment. That I want our mission and vision, our strategic plan to actually be workable, livable documents, not just something that's on the wall that no one can refer to, that nobody knows what it is. It's not related to anything. But our mission and vision, strategic plan should be revisited. It should be updated on a regular basis. It should be confirmed. And with that, our schools should set their own goals that's based on our mission and vision and strategic plan. There should be that strategic alignment. So when we say, here's the goal of the district, those goals are going into the school, and they say, well, okay, what does this look like at Schurz Elementary? What does that look like at Watertown High School? So I want to see that alignment from the district to the schools to the classrooms. Now with that, there's going to be times I disagree with the principals. There's going to be times I potentially disagree with the board. And sometimes we're going to have to agree to disagree and if it's in the best interest of kids. And boy, I tell you what, if our data is great and our principal is pushing back on something, I don't have to have the last word. But one thing I always talk about is my loose and tights. If we're talking something ethical, something moral, those are my tights. That's where I won't move.
Good. Thank you. So what experience do you have in dealing with children and families in poverty?
Absolutely. Quite a bit. I grew up in Sheboygan, very blue collar town. All my friends growing up, blue collar. And I think from an early age, I didn't necessarily see it. And then when I got to college at UW La Crosse, I started working at a place called Leadership Alternative School. It's within their Family and Children's Center. And really it was there that it was an eye-opening experience for me. Working with students that had been expelled from their previous school, that were on behavioral contracts at their current school, from some high poverty, from some pretty homes filled with major trauma. And to me, that was a calling. And I've really devoted a good chunk of my career to make sure that I was going to be a voice for those students, and I was going to be a support for those students, be that advocate for a kid that doesn't have one at home or doesn't have one in the community. I'm going to be that voice for him. So truly, it is ingrained in my culture and who I am as a person. And I think as a society, as a community, we need to rally around all people within our community. That means we take care of all kids, no matter where they're from. With that, I think what we're seeing more and more from some of our students from poverty is we're seeing generational poverty, which is truly causing some generational trauma. And with that, we got to wrap a ton of support around those kids, whether in the classroom, through our guidance and student services, and make sure that those kids are in a better place.
Good, thank you. Briefly describe how you would go about developing a comprehensive 5-year plan for the district, and how would you implement it?
So the 5-year plan would be around several areas, and I would want it to be a highly collaborative space. So it'd be in conjunction with the board, using an administrative team. I would want feedback from the community, feedback from our staff members. So I'd start with collecting feedback and collecting data. We want to make sure that we're looking at multiple data points and making sure that we're seeing lots of different information here as we're moving forward, right? With that, I'd be looking from an instructional lens. I'd be looking from a financial lens. And how do we, again, build in that strategic plan, that mission and vision work as part of that 5-year plan as well. So in my experience and in my philosophy, that 5-year plan would not only be the budget, but it would be part of our data metrics for moving forward. How are we going to measure ourselves 5 years down the road to say, yeah, we are improving as a school district. We are moving in the direction we want to be headed for all kids.
Okay, thank you. So based on what we've learned, do you think the district needs to be cautious about putting heavy COVID protocols in place for the future? Or should we handle it like we do any other communicable disease?
I think that's a great question, because it has caused a lot of divisiveness over the last 2 years. And my personal frustration over the last 2 years has been our inability just to have good conversations around this topic. Because folks that were very scared by COVID and we're pushing for more preventive measures weren't wrong. Those that are saying, hey, let's get kids back in the classroom, they're missing out on learning, we're not wrong. So how can we bring those sides together and have a good conversation that's not personal, that it's not attacking others, it's not taking people that have been in education for 30 years and tearing down their legacy because they disagree with you on this topic, but how can we bring both of those sides together to figure out what works here in Watertown? And I do think it's a local decision, because for those communities that had a higher rate, yeah, maybe it made sense to shut down and have a little more protocols in place. But if you're following your metrics and your numbers are down, boy, let's look at our numbers, let's look at our data, let's feel the pulse of the community, let's talk to our teachers, and there's a lot to weigh there. But as I answer that, what I really want to convey is what I started with, that both sides had really good points. Both sides were not wrong. But I feel like the ultimate goal here in education is to get kids in school and to make sure that they are not missing out on some important years in their life and some very important learning in your life. I feel like some districts have done an amazing job of finding that balance.
Good, thank you. We are seeing a lot of threats and acts of violence in school setting lately. What are your thoughts on how to keep kids and staff safe in schools?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I saw two amazing things today that would highlight that Watertown's doing some really good things around school safety. Number one, I saw secure entryways in all the buildings. That's number one. Believe it or not, there's still lots of schools out there that do not have secure entryways. And to me, that's a shame. Every single building needs to have a secure entryway. Number two, I saw some liaison officers, not only at the high school, but one at the middle school. That's an amazing start. Not a lot of districts have that amount of support. Some have to share one liaison officer for their entire district. So that's a really good resource. That's a really good support to have within our schools. So those are two really good things there. Beyond that is the culture that you establish. And as we looked at other unfortunate events over the years, I think one commonality we found was in some instances where it was a culture that maybe wasn't inclusive, that wasn't supportive. And the more that we can do that within our school to make sure that all kids are honored, all kids are supported, that's going to put us in a better place from a safety standpoint.
Describe specific strategies you would use to promote public support for school activities, budget, and instructional programs.
Strategies to get public support.
I'll repeat it. Describe specific strategies you would use to promote public support for school activities, budget, and instructional programs.
Absolutely. I'd use multiple means. I'm a big believer in using social media and multiple forms of social media. I think with at least my age demographic, Facebook tends to be the one that we tend to a lot in Milton. We don't get a lot of feed from Instagram or from our Twitter feeds, but we'll continue to monitor that. And I think I would want to do the same here. So what social media feeds get the most attention, and just keep constant information coming out in that way. I think regular information coming from the district office and coming from the district of here's where we're headed, here's things that are going on is important. And within that is also a balance of not over communicating. I worked with a colleague in the past that communicated so much that sometimes those, hey, you really need this message, was always lost because they had over communicated. And I think that can be a danger as well. So really trying to keep a pulse in the community of, okay, how much do they really want? And continue to ask questions to find that balance. The last part I would use would be just being visible, getting out in the community, seeing people, talking to folks, and getting to the schools and sharing the message. If we're in trouble from a budget standpoint, I want to make sure that we're having that conversation early, that we're having it with multiple people, and that there's no surprises. Right? As a leader and as a dad, I don't like surprises.
Okay. Next question. So we know everyone has a really busy life, but how do you go about engaging parents and community into the schools as a whole?
Absolutely.
How do you find that engagement piece with parents and community?
Absolutely. You know, I think what we've seen in a lot of districts is some specialized parent support. You know, as my kids are getting older, you know, we don't have a lot of parent groups anymore. Like we'll have a show choir parents, we'll have a football parents or a swim parents, but we don't have a lot of school parent groups anymore. Just talk about the achievement of the school and kind of how the school is doing from a cultural climate standpoint. It's very specialized on student activities. So I'd like to see more parent support just from the school lens. All right, who are the supporters of Watertown High School, of Riverside Middle School? So it's not just about the athletic piece or a certain activity. And with that, it's lots of reach out. It's lots of reach out, constant communication. Just having that open door policy. Again, making sure that you're selling yourself, telling your story.
Good, thank you. So we still have about 10, 12 minutes left. If you have more questions, please feel free to write them down, put them in the chat box. I will ask a couple more questions and to give our audience time if you would like to ask any final questions. So I know you were all day in the district today. I know you researched the district. I know you read through our comprehensive report. You went through the survey. In your opinion, if you get the job, what are your priorities? Coming in and what are your priorities? What do you tackle first? And then what do you think is an urgent need of the district?
Absolutely. Well, it's been fascinating to read the surveys, and as I'm looking at the data, looking at the state report card, reading the surveys and getting the buildings, you know, putting it all together and processing it all. And my brain is going a million miles an hour here tonight as I'm processing it all. Amazing visit today. I think what I heard overall in the survey from the community, but also from staff and admin, was that we need to look at achievement. We need to work on our achievement. So that's one thing that's really stuck out in my mind. Being from a curriculum instruction background, that's something that I'm excited about. I'm excited to talk about, because really that's the nature of what we do, right? We want to make sure our kids are growing, and then they're leaving us and have the whole world in front of them. So I would see having conversations around student achievement as being a priority. What do our staff see as the needs? What do they see as the hurdles? What do they need as support in order to continue to move our kids forward? One thing that jumped out at me on the survey was that there's some discrepancy between how admin answered questions versus how staff answered questions. And I'd like to ask some more questions around that, kind of dig into that a little bit. I'm a big believer in transparency and having open conversations, and you know what, those hard conversations that sometimes we don't want to have are so much easier when we just have them. So I want to find out, okay, why do we have that difference in the way staff views things, or admin, or the way our staff views things, and as some of our community members? Because there was a few questions there that was quite a difference.
Good. Okay, thank you. Okay, another question came in. So what is your experience supporting multilingual learners and families?
Absolutely. Right now in Milton, as the director of curriculum instruction, I'm also in charge of all of our title programming. So that includes our Title III programming, which is all around our English language learners. So I have an extensive knowledge working in that area. Even though we don't have a huge EL population within Milton, I work very closely with that population. I've been an advocate for that population, and we're actually going to go up and staff it next year, because we know our needs are great. Unfortunately, when we went virtual during the first part of the pandemic, a good chunk of our English language learners chose to go virtual as well, and that not proved to be great for a lot of those kiddos from an achievement lens. So we're rolling some more support to those families and those kids, and I'm pretty excited for our plan for next year. As a principal, I had a pretty diverse school that I worked with in Sun Prairie, students from all over the globe. When I was overseas, I led staff development for a staff that came from 25 different countries, and my student population was from over 60 different countries. So I have a lengthy history of working with English learners.
Good. Okay, I'll ask a final question, and you can have a closing, and then I'm sure you'll stick around if anyone would like to just meet you or say hi to you for a few minutes.
Okay.
So a final question from us would be, there are lots and lots of hot topics today in education. So could you rattle off 2 or 3 of those hot topics, and then what would your approach be to those topics?
A couple of them we talked about already today. You know, one of the hot topics is staff retention and recruitment. And I think that is going to continue to be a major topic for all education for years to come. So making sure that, again, we are a destination district, a place where our teachers and staff want to be, so we continue to build on that culture. So that's one of the biggest things that comes to mind. Secondly, schools are a mirror of our society, and we have some political divisiveness right now in our society that is coming into our schools. So we have to have some come together conversations overall, from a transparency standpoint, from a philosophy standpoint, that we're here for the good of all kids. That's what we're here for. And I see those two things kind of being on the forefront of education for the next couple of years. The other piece I would talk about would be, as we're talking about student achievement, how are schools going to change? I said years ago when the pandemic started, if we don't learn our lessons from this, and if we go back to the end of the pandemic, back to 2018 again, boy, we learned nothing. We did not learn our lessons. So what do we need to change within education? that mean we examine our schedules? We examine our credit options for kids. And what do we need to do differently to prepare our kids for the future? So those would be three things that I think are the most important of our time.
Good. Okay, the floor is yours for closing comments.
All right. Well, first off, thank you for having me today. Thank you for being with me live, and thank you for being with me on Zoom. I immensely enjoyed my time today. And I'm gonna be frank, I really like what I'm doing right now in Milton. I like being the director of curriculum instruction. I work with awesome people. We're doing some really good projects. But I'm ready to take this next step to be a superintendent, and I'm ready to take this next journey. But I just don't want it to be anywhere. I jumped at the chance to apply to Watertown. I've been here before. I've lived here before. My son Sam was born at the hospital here. The opportunity to come back is exciting to me and to my family. I'm not looking just for any job. I'm looking for the job. And then hopefully I can find a spot and be here until I retire. So that's the hope. That's the goal. And I just appreciate the opportunity to be here.
All right, thank you. And again, thank you for joining on Zoom. Thank you for being here. If you want to say hi to him before you leave or goodbye to him, he's here for 5 more minutes.
All right. Thank you, Mike.
All
Appreciate it.
right. Thank you, everyone. Great questions. Those are great questions.
Thanks for moderating, Tyler. Appreciate it.
Getting out of